Hello again and welcome to World Cycling Productions' first time coverage of the race from Paris to Tours. We join the action, one rider in the lead. And here he is, the young man Sylvain Chavanel of the Bonjour team. Just 21 years of age, he's been away virtually all day. He slipped away with one other rider very early on today, and the rain was coming down fairly heavily then. It's still drizzling, it's certainly cold, and well, we're heading for the European winter, so what more do you expect in this race?
The riders now come into Saint-Martin-les-Beaux. This man, at one time, Phil, had a 35-minute advantage over the main field, but it really is starting to crumble, and I'm pretty certain he's going to get pulled in before we get to the end, because this kind of race, in the last hour or so, the riders touch 50 kilometers an hour.
And it's 254 kilometers all up this race, a race basically designed for the sprinters. Although last year won in a lone breakaway by Mark Wouters, who had a wonderful year, the Belgian rider on Rabobank. And now this man, as I say, got away earlier with just one rider, the Lithuanian Mindaugas Konsaras, but he dropped back, and this man's been going well. There were moments, I think, when they thought he was going to survive and race start to finish, but big-time professional riders never allow that to happen. He's now being hunted down, and he'll shortly be joined.
Just looking at his style here, you can see he's starting to weaken. All these slight inclines as we get closer to Tours, really eating into his strength, and I think this young man is going to have pretty sore legs tomorrow morning, but they will talk a lot about his brave effort, and he's brought the team Bonjour a lot of good publicity today.
4.5 hours he's headed up the field today. That's an awful long time in your first year as a pro. Great slice of advertising, of course, for this new team Bonjour. This young man rode well in the Franco-Belge. He won a stage in that. He also rode well in the Tour de l'Avenir, so he's beginning to come into the pro scene as obviously a good promise for next year. It takes a couple of years to settle in, so he's become the sacrificial pig, and you never know, occasionally you can land at the big one. He's certainly had the cheers of the crowd all the way since we started from the village Saint-Arnoux-en-Yvelines outside of Paris, and the 188 riders on the start line there today, as now we're heading down towards the finish. Remember, this is the second to last World Cup event, still being headed up by Eric Zabel with a commanding lead over the rest. His nearest challenger, André Schmil of Belgium. Schmil openly missing on the Olympic Games because he wanted to ride and win the World Championship, and well, we'll find out. He's still got 7:20, but let's not forget it was 30 minutes, and it's 9 minutes back to the main field. And that little chase group that's got itself away now includes Nico Martin is in that group, and I think also Andrea Tafi. We haven't seen them yet.
Well, it's a pretty good move by the Bonjour team, because this team is really a development team, Phil. They got selection for the Tour de France this year. They were put together by Jean-René Bernadeau, a former professional. I raced most of my career with Jean-René, actually. He turned pro back in 1978. This is the group behind with Tafi, Nardello. Eric Zabel is in there as well as Rolf Sorensen. And Pataki is there, Zevgeny Spruk, Nico Martin and André Schmil. So those two riders really paying attention to where they are in the pack.
And so looking down the list there with Schmil in that group, Jens Voigt has got in there too, and Spinter Kersipou still would like to win a big race, a big named World Cup Classic, Kersipou, because he's a prolific sprint winner. Here's a chance now to look at Schmil here, and tacked onto the back of them is Andrea Tafi. He's absolutely fuming because he hasn't been selected for the World Championship. And Rick Verbrugge is the other rider. Oh no, Rick Verbrugge is the Lotto man there, and that's Nico Martin, I think, in front of him.
This is a pretty serious move, but these weather conditions as we get closer to Tours really do hurt the legs at this time of the year. It's very cold, and as you said earlier, Phil, we are approaching the European winter. Many of these riders will leave these shores and train and prepare for the following season in warmer climes, places like Australia and South Africa. The chase has now been reduced to just 3 riders. Andrea Tafi, as you say, not happy at all at not being selected for the Italian team for the World Championships. Although Tafi is not a great winner of bike races, he's a guy who is always good to have in a team, because he is able to hold his fitness, or a certain level of fitness, from February right through till the end of the season.
Yes, a remarkable rider. If you talk to his teammates, they're full of admiration for Zabel and Tafi, because they're mile eaters. They just go out and train the long hours in any weather, build up that basis. Now we're back in Saint-Martin here. It's certainly not 7 minutes since the leader went through, so these three are closing in very rapidly now.
They're closing in pretty rapidly. Tafi looking over his shoulder just to see what the situation is behind, see if the there is a return of the main field. The main field are not too far off the back of this group of 3 riders, and we're now 48 kilometers to go to the finish. That's about an hour and 10 minutes, because over the last couple of years they put a couple of nasty little climbs in the final kilometers of Paris Tours here, and that's usually where we see an attack coming. As you said, this is a race that was designed for the sprinters, but unfortunately every organizer these days, Phil, wants to have a lone winner, and I think that's why they've gone out and searched at least for a couple of nice little climbs to split up the field on the run-in.
Well, this might be good news for Andrea Taffy. He is a rider who is a very, very good single-day rider. Remember his escapade in Paris-Roubaix. Absolutely fantastic bike rider. Tour of Lombardy winner as well. And we remember him back home in Britain, of course, for his win in the Rochester Grand Prix, which was a World Cup race until we sadly lost that to a World Cup race in Germany.
He also enjoys riding all over the place. I've seen him racing in the Tour de Langkawi, a bike race in Malaysia in the early part of the year. This is the group that Andrea Taffy was in just a few moments ago. Eric Zabel and Andre Schmiele in this group right now. But the main field is still not really very far behind. You can see the World Cup leader in there with his white jersey. Eric Zabel is very happy to be wearing that jersey. He's won the points jersey at the Tour de France 4 times in succession.
Yes, and as you can see there, he's riding very sharply now. He's going to be worried about the presence of Andre Schmiele, because Schmiele is the only man who can get at him now if he gets a good result today. But he does need a good result today. He needs to get the better of Zabel. Otherwise, number 21 there will be the World Cup winner by the end of this day.
What a season Eric Zabel has had as well. You said, Phil, about him being a major mile eater. When he went to Milan-San Remo earlier in the year, he had 20,000 kilometers of training in his legs. That is absolutely remarkable to hold that from Milan-San Remo, go right the way through to the Tour de France, the Olympic Games, and then be here at Paris Tours as well, defending his lead in this World Cup.
Well, those 9 riders down there are chasing the 3 we've just seen, Verbrugge, Matin and Taffy. They are now really travelling on this road. As you can see, we're not on the main road, we're on the secondary road here to Tours. And they're eating into the lead, certainly, of the man out front. It's been a very brave effort, this, but you're not going to stay out front till the end, and not anymore now. And poor old Chantal, I think, is going to find himself reeled in very quickly. These 3 riders making very quick inroad now. Taffy in familiar style here, driving on this group. Would dearly love to get a win. He's totally fuming with the manager of the World Championship team for Italy because he has not been named. And you know, there's so much controversy surrounding the selections, and as we saw in the Olympic Games, they did make a bad call in naming Marco Pantani for that event at the expense, as it turned out, of David Rebellin, who was the man on form.
And Rebellin much more a one-day rider than Marco Pantani. I cannot understand why at all they took Pantani to the Olympic Games. The fact that they're moving those cars forward now, Phil, means that that group behind with Zabel and Schmiele must be closing in, so it looks like it'll be a general regrouping behind the lone leader, Chavanel.
And what a great ride he's done, Paul, having been away so long. He's been in the lead now for 5 hours. And imagine when you're a first-year pro riding your first Paris Tours, a World Cup race at this level, all eyes of the world are upon you. And you must be conscious of that with every pedal rev. And he's not going to slow down and give up. He's going to go to exhaustion, unless his manager tells him a little bit of common sense. Look, they're coming up now, just take it easy. All I want you to do at this point is reach the finish.
He has to keep riding. He's probably taking the ticket out of Jackie Durand's book. Jackie Durand, who's won some incredible bike races with long breakaway situations like this. This is Schmiele on the front, talking to the team manager. The team manager in the car today, in fact, is Claude Criquillon, who came across after Jean-Luc Van den Broeke was removed from the Lotto squad during the winter months. The overall management of that team being given to Jos Brackerveld. Sevgeny Spruk in the pink and blue jersey there of the Lampre, and the man just tucked on the back there for the Mapei squad is Paolo Bettini.
The guy driving through there now, Johan Kirsipuu, searching for a great win, lifted his presence in the world of cycling when he got the lead in the Tour de France for a week last year, but that's all gone by the board now. But in the last 2 editions of Paris Tours, he's finished in 3rd place, just beaten by the breakaways at the end, Jackie Durand, and last year it was Mark Wouters, and he's still got 4 riders in front of him here.
In fact, that was a great win by Jackie Durand a couple of years ago, because it was the first Frenchman to win since the great Albert Bouvet, and the French had waited almost 45 years for a Frenchman to take over the top slot. Looking further up the road there, I think we can just get a glimpse of the lone leader, Chavanel. Right, no, that's the three chasers. Chavanel still around about 5 minutes in front of this group at the moment, but his time gap really, Phil, is crumbling.
Well, that's to be expected now, as again Taffy in that familiar thundering style of his, all arms and all legs like a giant spider when he climbs over that bike. And Nico Matan, who had a wonderful Tour de France this year after the day he challenged on Otakam in the Pyrenees, and he got up to second in the King of the Mountains, and he had a great tour. That was no flash in the pan. Here's our leader, and we're down to 2:31 now. It's all over. The rain has continued to keep the roads damp, but it's nothing like it was earlier. But this guy has got to feel cold now after all this time out front. His back must be aching, his legs certainly will be aching, and his arms probably as well.
Well, just looking at his style here, you can see this guy is a broken man right now. But he has gone out and got an awful lot of publicity for his team, Bonjour. This race has been covered live for the last 2.5 hours on French television, and nearly all they've seen is the man on the front, Chavanel. There are the three chasers, and there is the group behind. They're all in the same straightaway right now. And once again, you can see that the Mapei team have proved that they are the #1 team when it comes down to racing in the World Cup. They've got two men in the chasing group and Taffy on the attack. This is why they're such a good team when it comes to the World Cup. They're always at the front in force, in numbers.
Well, this chase group now has a relationship with those three up front. They could see them as they came over that bridge, and this may be why Nico Matan has decided it's time to liven it up, and he might well be first up to the race leader. So a Frenchman being chased now by Matan in the Cofidis team. Taffy, you'll always find a man willing to work in Andrea Taffy with a point to prove as well. He ranks as one of the most prolific riders in World Cup races, still on the circuit of course, not in history. And he's a man who specialises in the long solitary effort. 2:22, and look at the gap there, it's only 15 seconds back to the chasing group containing Zabel.
The funny thing is though that Taffy will never give up. He's got Verbrugge coming alongside there, just saying to him, okay, let's forget it, we're not too far in front, let's wait, we're still 40 kilometers to go to the finishing line. But Taffy doesn't want that. He wants to keep going, and that's the important thing I think for him when he rides for this Mapei squad. The Mapei squad has got so many team leaders in it, you've got to be the first to attack. A little bit of discussion going on here between the team manager Theo de Roy there talking to Rolf Sørensen. They're in the group in the main field just a little bit further back.
Well, Sørensen up in this group here is actually a great single-day classic rider, riding out what has been a wonderful career, and a former winner of the big classics, including Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Crashed out of the Tour de France once with a broken collarbone in Versailles, I think it was, when he had the leader's yellow jersey. There's Zabel. Zabel will be very pleased with the way this is going. His only concern will be the rider in the lead there at the minute, André Schmil. He's going to just watch him, and that's what happens at this stage of the World Cup. The race leader is riding a totally different race now, whereas Zabel would be seen as a possible winner of this race from this position. He's not going to be interested in the win unless it comes almost by default. He's just going to watch the whereabouts and performance of Schmil.
Well, that time gap crumbling again, inside 2 minutes now. This guy, you can see the face, he's absolutely exhausted right now. He's just waiting for the main field to catch him up. He'll then try and survive and ride to the finish. He'll probably pick up the award for the most aggressive rider, and out on the course of Paris Tours, there are a certain number of monetary prizes as well that will go into the team kitty.
And so, as the time approaches at 5 o'clock in the evening now here in France, we cross the beautiful Cher, another river which is crisscrossed many times with a famous stage race down here. And still that little breakaway is trying to chase down. There's somebody got away off the front of this group now.
Somebody just trying to leap across the gap there to make contact with the Andrea Taffy and Verbrugge group in front there. This is in fact Zevgeny Spruk, the rider from Lampre, who's decided now to leap off the front and try and make contact. It's a bit strange, the tactical manoeuvring right now, and I think people are probably taking advantage of the marking between Eric Zabel and André Schmil. Schmil and Zabel both locked together in first and second place in the overall standings in the World Cup. And as you said, for Schmil, the only thing he has to do is try and win the bike race to get as many points as possible. And for Zabel, on the other hand, the only thing he must do is try and make sure that he finishes as close to as possible to the Belgian.
Well, there's an attack going off the front, and that's Paolo Bettini. Zbigniew Spruk is the rider up the road, and Spruk finished third in this race back in 1994. Ironically, he was behind Eric Zabel then, and there's Spruk, the top of the picture. Paolo Bettini having a great season. has reached him, and it looks as though Zabel respects those two riders because he's closing the gap, not surprisingly, with Schmill on his wheel. And Bettini is going on.
Well, Bettini going straight over the top of that move. He's got a man in the breakaway, and that's Andrea Taffy right now. If we get two Mapei riders up the road, then I think it will all be curtains. But Andre Schmiel doesn't want that because Schmiel is the guy now taking up the chase. And look at the reaction there, Phil, coming from Eric Zabel. He has got to follow the Belgian, Russian, Moldovan everywhere that he goes in this bike race.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The man of three passports. He's currently a Belgian and concentrating on the upcoming World Championships, and he's making no secret about it.
Looks over his shoulders there and sees that everybody has, in fact, made the contact with his back wheel. Bettini now really acting as a domestique, looking to try and get away on his own. At the back of that group is Daniele Nardello in the white jersey as well. He's the other Mapei rider in this squad. And it looks as if, once again, the team in the World Cup at the end of this competition is going to be Mapei.
Well, they've been a brilliant team for some years now, and there's no signs of it changing. Nico Matan waving his finger there. Rick Verbrugge at the back. He's the time trial champion, by the way, of Belgium. His only win of the year.
I really don't know what Taffy's got to say. He's shouting at the guys, so what, so what? Come on, let's get going. Allora. So he's really keen to get the pace high in this move right now, Phil, but he's not getting an awful lot of help coming from Nico Matin. And Verbrugge there, you can see, I think he's been given the word to sit on the back of this group because of the fact that his team leader, Andre Schmiel, is in the group behind.
And so Matin knows that, and he's decided he's got to liven this up. Taffy is waiting for a reaction from Verbrugge. I don't think it will come. Taffy will only give him one chance, and then he'll go himself. That's his style of cycling. They are not very far off catching the leader now, and you can expect to see him at any moment. And Matin is now wanting somebody to come up and continue the pace. You see, Paul's absolutely right. Verbrugge's been told now to wait because they could be giving Schmiel a good chance here in the final race of the year, the Tour of Lombardia, of winning the World Cup and retaining the championship. It's been done before, but it's always nice to do it again. It's never been done before by Andre Schmiel, of course.
It's so important really for Schmiel to get maximum points in this race here because he's not really at home in a race like the Tour of Lombardy. Neither, though, is Eric Zabel. So that is why there's such a big battle here in Paris Tours. This is the kind of event which suits both of those riders. And once I think we get to the finish line in Tours, Eric Zabel, if he's in front of Andre Schmiel, is going to breathe a big sigh of relief.
So it looks as though the three are going to have to rethink now. Zabel and the boys regain contact. This little skirmish behind, though, has eaten into the lead of the unlucky Frenchman. Well, he's hardly unlucky. He's been a magnificent boy today, riding like he's ridden. But it's all over for him now, although it's not quite all over. They haven't brought him back yet. Time for feeding before the attacks will go again. And this looks like an attack now by Goresh Stangeli. And he came to our notice last year when in Australia in October he won the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic. Had a very bad Tour of Langkawi, retired, if memory serves me right, with a broken wrist. And I thought, well, that's him gone, but he's had a wonderful season this year.
Rolf Sorensen moving forward there in the orange and white jersey of Rabobank. And coming straight by him, that looked very much as if it was Daniele Nardello now who's going out on the attack. Nardello has been a brilliant bike rider over the last few years. Where's number 16 here? He's really been, I think, cheated by the fact that he's on such a strong team because he's been so close to taking the national championships over the last couple of years in Italy, and it's always been one of his teammates has got to the line in front of him. But he still rides as an excellent domestique for the team, always aggressive, and another one of those bike riders very much like Andrea Taffy, who can hold his form from the very early season races right the way through until the end. They've pulled out the Bonjour car there, Phil, so I would say obviously the next thing we're going to see is Chavanel. He must not be very far up the road from this group now.
No, our camera's concentrating on the chase now, so he's not far away. Rolf Sorensen, he's now 35 years of age and the winner this year of the Tour of Denmark. A very satisfying victory for him in his own country, of course, and he's won some of the finest races. In fact, he's won 57 races by my reckoning since he turned professional back in 1986. 14 seasons a pro. That takes some doing.
And he's seen the highs and lows because if you remember back in 1991. He was wearing the yellow jersey at the Tour de France, and he crashed out with a broken collarbone. That was certainly a very sad day for him.
And do you remember, he actually wanted to start next day. He said, it's okay, I can still ride, and they wouldn't let him.
Unbelievable. And he's still got the keenness and the aggression to go out there and race at the top level of the sport, although he has asked his sponsor over the last couple of years to be left out of the Tour de France.
Looking back at Pataki here, tagged on to the back of this little chasing group with Bettini now. He's another man that's had a great season. Came to our notice really in the Tour of Italy, but now he started to come up really good this year and ride extremely well, and I'm going to be sure we're going to see a lot of him next year.
9 wins so far this season, a brilliant bike rider and a man that we saw battling it out in the first week of the Giro d'Italia. There is the lone leader now, Phil. The white flag has been raised to the top of the masts, and for Chavanel it's all over. But certainly he'll be able to tell a few stories about his long escape and leading Paris Tours by 35 minutes at one stage.
In the lead for 5 hours, a little wave from Andrea Taffi. Oh, we've seen the leader for the first time. He speaks a little bit of English, Andrea, speaks French very well, and of course his national tongue is Italian. There's the catch, and a congratulations from Andrea. That's the sort of guy he is, saying, well done, you've had your first taste of a big-time bike race in a World Cup event, and you spent nearly 5 hours in the lead. And that's really, and he's still looking for the legs to tag on to the back. Now he's seeing the big boys come up, being led by the biggest of this group, really, Taffi.
He's right on the tail of this big train here, playing caboose right now. And he gets a chance just to see how fast this locomotive is when it screws along the main roads of France like this. But Andrea Taffi, Phil, is such a popular bike rider. Because of little gestures like that, he's always got time to talk to the younger riders, always got time to talk to the fans. He seems to be happy throughout the season, but certainly over the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's not been a happy man with the selectors. Fusi, the Italian director of the national squad, they're not retaining him, saying that Taffi didn't have very good form, and it is so difficult when you ride on a top team like Mapei to show the form and win races. The important thing for Taffi is to win for the team, and today I think he's trying to get all of that anger out through his legs.
I quite agree. 9 riders coming back together at the front of Paris Tours. This long flat race with a few undulations. This is the man who's been the star so far, Sylvain Chavanel. He's suffering a little bit now, and somebody's gone up the road, and there's a counter-attack as well. It looks though, is it Taffi who's gone?
Taffi's countered. That's Nico Matin who's gone first, but Taffi waited. He's trying to get rid of Verbrugge, because Verbrugge has been sitting on the back of this group all of the time. He's opened up a slight advantage, but Verbrugge has been sitting on most of the time, defending for Andre Schmil, and I think we'll see the 3 of them coming back together, and it's goodbye Chavanel. And I suppose riding for the Bonjour team, it's now au revoir.
Au revoir after Bonjour. Just watching Taffi there put his arms out to say, let's just cool it for a minute, guys, as they come up to Matin. Certainly Verbrugge is waiting for the arrival of his team captain, Andre Schmil. This is Schmil's best chance now. In fact, it's his only chance to get back into the action. If he can score well over Zabel today, then he will go to the Tour of Lombardia, possibly advantage to him, because the Lombardia race isn't one to suit Eric Zabel.
Difficult race for Eric Zabel. Zabel, although he is a great competitor, is not one of the great climbers, and in a one-day race like the Tour of Lombardy, it was going to be very difficult. This now is Andre Schmil right down on the bars, trying to put a lot of pressure in, and I think he may well have slipped the group that's behind him. He wears number 141. He's looking over his shoulders. There's Chavanel. He's caught him, and actually Andre Schmil now is on the attack. We never heard a thing about this, and he has a slight advantage over the Eric Zabel group.
Yeah, well, Zabel's group must be just behind, because he can only just have got away. He flew past the Frenchman from Bonjour, and this obviously is what Verbrugge was waiting for. He's been told, I would say, that there's a planned move coming from Schmil on the run into Tours, and Schmil knows this is his last chance. But what a great defence all of a sudden in his last few races he started to put in the World Cup event. He won the trophy last year. He's been such a consistent bike rider in single-day races. He's not a Tour de France or Tour of Italy rider. He just packs in those events. But look at, he's spread eagle now, this group. And I'm just looking for the white jersey of Zabel. I think it's at the back here.
It's at the back of that group there. That looked like Daniele Nardello going across there. That's Nardello just making the contact now, and this attack has actually split the group into smithereens. Zabel obviously was happy to be in the group, but he's not able to match this move here by Andre Schmil. And let's not forget, Andre Schmil is one of those riders who decided not to go to the Olympic Games as well. He wanted to stay here in Europe. Zabel has come back from Sydney, obviously suffering a little bit from jet lag as well. He may well have made the wrong decision going down there to the Olympic Games, because he didn't ride well. The victory there going to his teammate Jan Ullrich, and on this occasion now he has to come back to Europe and try and survive over the next couple of weeks just to keep himself at the top of the leaderboard in the World Cup.
Where he's been ever since Milan-San Remo, a race which Schmil also won last year, and ironically he won the World Cup after winning Milan-San Remo, and at the moment that's the way the trophy is going just now. Just looking here, Jan Kursipuu is the rider tagged onto the wheel of Rolf Sorensen. Kursipuu, the sprinter, twice third in this event for the past 2 years, and in a decisive mood again as they come up to Nardello and Andre Schmil. No sign up front yet of the escapers.
Kursipuu really is the king of the early season bike races, but he's not the kind of bike rider you want to take to the finish at the end of a race like this, because he has got an incredible turn of speed. He so far this year has got 13 victories under his belt, and I think maybe if he was to concentrate just a little bit more on the Tour de France, we would see him being a much more successful rider in the first 10 days or so. But team tactics determine that he has to go out and race hard in the Étoile de Bessèges and the Tour of the Mediterranean, and his recipe for training for those events certainly is exceptionally successful.
Yes, and if he could just land a big World Cup race. 13 races this season he's won, which isn't far off his best. His best season was last year. He won 18, and 72 races he's sitting on right now. He hasn't won since last month, when he popped over to the Tour of Poland, and he won 3 stages straight.
Pretty impressive, but this man is in difficulty now there. Where's 21, the leader of the World Cup, Erik Zabel? He's being attacked by the man who is his closest challenger. Now, if Andre Schmil can get across the line in first place, he'll earn himself 100 points, and his deficit at the moment is around about 130 points over Erik Zabel. And if he does win, then it's going to make this a very close competition in the last round of the series, the Giro di Lombardia.
Absolutely, it'd be a great climax. Wide open when it was looking like a runaway just before the Tour de France, when we had the Amstel Gold Race to close down the sort of pre-big tours sections of the World Cup. It looked as though Zabel had it already in the can and could sit back. Well, if that's not confidence for you, what is? We're back up with the leaders now, and Andrea Tafe driving on, giving us a wave, looking with a bit of disdain at Nico Matan, who's only had 2 wins this year, both of them in Belgium. Kermesse races, around about 130 kilometre races, and this is more than double those distances. He's had a very strange career as Nico Matan. He had the heart problem which caused Cofidis to say don't bother coming and riding for us. Then the doctor decided he was okay, and then he fractured his hip this year in the Tour de Flanders in a rather nasty prang. So he's been up and down, but he came good with a great Tour de France, and it looks as though his legs are back now.
They certainly are, and he was vying for a long time for the King of the Mountains competition in the Tour de France, which is quite surprising from a man from the flatlands of Belgium. There's Erik Zabel there trying to get back on terms with Andre Schmil. Schmil is in that small group of riders just up the road right now, but Zabel really suffering to try and keep his lead in the World Cup right now. Schmil there has been joined by Kursipuu, and this group now has swelled to around about 8 riders. Taffy's group is still in the front, but not by very much more than about 20 seconds.
Good driving here. Pataki's up here, his second wheel. This is Andre Schmil on camera. There's Rolf Sorensen, number 5. Schmil is such a workhorse. He has an enviable list of successes in World Cup events. Not always the winner, but the most consistent rider. He's of the same mould as Franco Ballerini. Always in the top 6, always a great wheel to follow. Here's Sorensen going through now. Jan Kursipuu.
Amazing guy, Andre Schmil. He's almost 38 years of age now, and I suppose one of his the greatest things on his pedigree is, in fact, he's the last national champion of the USSR, and a title he took back in 1991. One of the first group of Russian riders to turn professional. They turned professional for a small team called the Alpha Lum team, which was basically all Soviet riders who came across to race in Italy, and since then he's gone on to become a really well-respected bike rider with a victory in the Tour of Flanders and a victory in Paris-Roubaix under his belt. And still, at almost 38, Phil, he's got the aggression to go out and race for these one-day classics.
Well, he knows all about this classic because in 1997 he set the record speed when he won Paris Tours, astronomical speed, and now he's looking for, more importantly, a high finish for the World Cup, and hopefully in Lombardia he'll defend that lead. But the one man missing from this split now is Zabel, and he must be suffering because he hasn't gone with the attack.
Well, he's still there. He's only about 50 odd meters off the back of this group, but he cannot close that gap. I think he's obviously suffering from the journey back from Sydney, Australia after the Olympic Games, and probably these weather conditions, Phil, too, because it was pretty warm in Sydney, and I think coming back to this winter chill may well have affected several of the riders who made the journey down there to the Southern Hemisphere. Still trying to pull himself back into the fold. And once again, that group has split, and it looks very much as if Schmiel has gone off the front of that group, because Zabel now is pulling himself back up to this group. There is Spruk. There are no Lotto riders in the group, so I must presume we didn't see it, but Andre Schmiel has actually escaped, and he now is somewhere up the road chasing that leading group of three.
Well, we'll find out soon. There's Stangley's car come up. Just to complete, and there he is, Paul, you're right, he's gone clear, and he's got with him Nardello. And so there's two strong riders for you. I don't know how he did that. Our cameras were engaged somewhere else, but he's gone. And Zabel is going to have to cause some reaction to bring him back. So you can't keep this man down. But just to complete the story on that fastest ever classic performance by Andre Schmiel, came back in 1997. And the record stands now 47.5 kilometers an hour. And that record is not in danger today, because we are slower than 39 kilometers an hour today. The long breakaway by the Frenchman, the adverse weather conditions have all contributed to a much slower race.
It's actually just a bit of a snigger there, because we were talking about this race being designed for the sprinters. Well, this is not exactly a sprinter's bike race today, because there are riders all over the place right now. The main field at the moment is more than 2 minutes behind these riders, and these guys are not just queuing up waiting for the sprint, they're attacking all of the time. And Andre Schmiel, you can just see him up the road there, and they cannot pull him back. He's hovering 100 meters off this group.
188 riders started this race. Again, our cameras obviously concentrating on the action at the front, but there are still more than 100 riders on course, and they're spread over about 12 minutes. Zabel here looking for a little bit of help now from Zbigniew Spruk. That's Gorash Stangley going through. He's having his best ever season, and he's launched an attack.
Good move by Stangley, as you said, the winner last year of the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic in Australia. He has gone off the front as well right now. This is a very crucial moment, because if Andre Schmiel can make contact with Andrea Taffy at the front and Nardello, that is going to be a very good working group, because there'll be two riders from Mapei, and then we're going to see Eric Zabel in some serious difficulty, because he won't have any friends in this group right now. There's no cohesion at all. It's a question of every man riding for himself.
Go to Crocshoe. 6%, one of these little hills they brought into this race, which has taken away its sprinter's image a little bit. Looks like it's hurt the legs too as they've come round it from the right hand side.
Zabel looking pretty much nailed there right now, and as we said, he doesn't have any friends in that group. The gap between the front of the race, the three leaders, and Andre Schmiel is 33 seconds right now, but I think they will actually increase their advantage over the Eric Zabel group right now. Pataki on the back of the group here. Right in front of him there is Kursiput, and Rolf Sorensen losing the wheel right now. Right in front of Sorensen there is Zabel. He's giving everything he's got right now to stay on the wheel of Spruk. He wants to make contact on this climb with the man who is his closest challenger, Andre Schmiel. But you can just see how difficult this bike race is. We've covered around about 230 kilometers so far, and at this time of the season it really does hurt the legs. This man, Eric Zabel, is suffering. He's hanging on with a slim hope to keep his big advantage in the World Cup competition so far. He started the day with 130 points advantage over Andre Schmiel, and that may well be slipping away from him.
Well, this is fighting time for Eric Zabel now to try and keep control of a very aggressive 141 there. Just to give you some idea, as we watch this breakaway try to establish without the World Cup leader, Eric Zabel started the year with his third victory in 4 years, and only Schmiel has stopped him making it 4 in a row in Milan-San Remo. Then he got fourth in the Tour of Flanders, third in Paris-Roubaix. He won the Amstel Gold Race, and so you can see why I said earlier that before even the Tour de France started, it appeared that Zabel had done enough to win the World Cup for the first time. But this man, Schmil, has fought his way back into the picture, and if he gets a result today and gets up to these three, and they're not very far ahead, four rather, and then we are going to look at a likely 100 points, and Zabel will not sleep until after the Tour of Lombardy.
Well, his Andre Schmil's campaign really started with that victory in the Tour of Flanders, but he leapt up the rankings when he finished second overall in the San Sebastian race, a race which really didn't suit him all that much, but what an incredible performance by him. He couldn't do anything to hold off Eric Decker, who's having really the best season of his career. Decker not in the front group today, but certainly proving that three-stage victories in the Tour de France was no fluke, with a victory in San Sebastian as well. But the second place for this man here in San Sebastian shot him right up and put him in a challenger's position.
Well, this is just a complete flat-out race now. Battle and battle on. The Vigny, just 25 kilometres from the finish. We're looking at the four leaders here. Sitting at the back now is Rick Verbrugge, still waiting for the arrival of the team captain. And Andrea Tafi is just hurting them now.
I don't know if Tafi knows, but he's got two teammates in the counter-attack behind. Bettini has also made contact with that group as well as Daniele Nardello. Now, if the three riders get up here from Mapei, that is going to make a pretty impressive advantage for them, a tactical advantage too, because then they will be able to attack one after the other to try and split the race to pieces. But you can see Tafi's not happy at all with Verbrugge. Verbrugge riding under race orders. Team direction has told him to sit there and wait for the return of Andre Schmil from behind. Right, I'm going to get these arm warmers off and we'll get down to business. 24 seconds and then 39 seconds back to Zabel.
Well, there's a great souvenir for somebody. They're about 20 metres apart, but there's a pair of arm warmers on the road now. As Tafi now strips off for action here. That's the sign of a man who's looking to win this race and show his disgust in the best possible manner to the Italian selectors for not naming him for the World Championship, which is coming up next. And this is the chase group now, and they are clear of Eric Zabel. And Zabel, I think, doesn't know what to do, because Schmil knows now he's got himself a real chance here.
Well, I'm not sure that he doesn't know what to do. I think he can't do what he wants to do. He knows the one man to chase is this man wearing 141 here, Andre Schmil, and he's got no power in his legs at all right now. He's had a very long season. Started off with that victory in Milan-San Remo, and he's been there ever since. He's in a group now of 5 riders. Zabel there in 4th position, right on the wheel of Pataki. But these riders, Phil, you can see they're just basically surviving for the moment, trying to keep themselves in contact with the counter-attackers. And it's an interesting situation developing for the Mapei squad, because they've got Tafi, who's riding like a madman on the front of that group, and he's got 2 of his own teammates actually working at the front of the counter-attack, trying to make the junction.
Every rider in this race knows Andrea Tafi's style. It is drive, drive, and never rest, and when the pace drops, you jump. And that's the way he rides his bike races. And so they know at the front he is going to be giving it his best shot now. Andre Schmil, one of the most consistent riders in World Cup Classic races, is in the thick of the action here. I believe Zabel has had it. I think he's actually blown up. He's sitting at the rear of that chase group, and he's not showing interest anymore.
Tafi's gone. What an amazing man. He was working like a Trojan on the front. He was doing everything that he could, and he's now decided, well, I'm not going to have Rick Verbrugge as a passenger all the way to Tours. I'm on my way. This is a great move by Tafi. He's off the front right now. He's got an advantage over the 2 chasers. He's got 2 teammates in the group behind, which is coming up. And this is a super move by him. This is the kind of move that brought him victory in Paris-Roubaix. We'll take a look at that again. It happened when we were off camera, but Nico Matin tried to get across to him. He wasn't able to, and Rick Verbrugge looks at his Belgian compatriot there and says, well, go on, you close that down. And I tell you one thing, when Tafi is flying, you've got to be right on his wheel when he goes.
Yes, absolutely right. Tafi has gone, and it's a style we've seen even on British shores, on the River Medway when he broke clear towards the end of the Rochester Grand Prix. He won alone there too. He's done it in Paris-Roubaix. Once he's free, he'll take some catching. He's gone with about 24 kilometres to go.
You see him taking a fast turn around there. He's trying to get as much speed as he can into this bike race right now. He's such a strong bike rider. He's sporting a little goatee beard right now, something that he's grown in the latter part of the season. And he's looking now to try and blow this race apart. His big advantage is the fact that he's got those 2 teammates in the group behind, Bettini and Nardello, and that will slow down the organisation in the chase group. This man if he does stay clear to the finish, will be a popular winner, because he is popular all over the European and international circuit. Taffy, looking back, the advantage not too big right now, Phil. It's only around about 100 meters or so, but Taffy is in that position, the dedicated position which brought him victory in Paris-Roubaix a couple of years ago.
The two guys he's left, I don't think have the legs. It's a question of whether those four behind can get up now. Le Petit Fort, as they try desperately to bring him back. He could be on here for a great win at a time when he's not going next week to the World Championships, and boy, will he be upset if he wins this race.
He'll be upset and happy at the same time. Very difficult. Unhappy because he's not going to the World Championships, but also happy because he'll be able to just say to the organisers, well, if I haven't got any form, I wonder how I managed to win this bike race. And I'm sure he's now being urged on by an awful lot of anger. A quick time check there, his advantage around about 20 seconds over the two chasers and 30 seconds back to the group containing Andre Schmil.
Well, I'm sure Taffy's wife Gloria and his two young children are enjoying the sight of Dad in the lead again. They've celebrated victories with him before. Probably the most celebrated was Paris-Roubaix when he won it in 1999. This year, funnily enough, he hasn't had a win yet, although he has been working very hard for his Mapei team. That's the price you pay being on a big team. You're often under the command of other riders and you have to give your effort to them. And Taffy, the type of rider he is often inhibited in his riding style. No wins this year, and he got 3 last year, including, of course, Paris-Roubaix.
Zabel there, where's 21 in second place on the wheel of Sørensen. Looking like he's really suffering to stay in with this group right now. He realises that his closest challenger has put in the ultimate attack here to try and get maximum points in Paris Tours in the penultimate round of the World Cup. This is the chasing group now with Andre Schmil. The two riders from Mapei, Phil, you can see on the inside there is Small, Bettini. Just going further back then was Nardello. Those riders will go forward now, but they won't really press on the pedals too much because they know that their man has got the advantage.
Which isn't going to help Schmil, of course, and the team tactics might well, in the end, prove his downfall. There's the gap for you to see. In the last bunch here is the World Cup leader, and Zabel would have counted this as one of his points races. This is the one that suits him. He's in second wheel here behind Sprook, but you see, if Zabel doesn't score well here and Schmil does, I think advantage will go to Schmil in Lombardia. Much different race there, not the sort that suits Eric. I think this is the first time since January, when Eric was going very well in the Tour Down Under in Australia, we've actually seen him showing a little bit of tiredness, and I guess he's entitled to that.
I don't think anybody would hold that against him, because it has been an ultra-long season for nearly all of the bike riders this year, because of the fact that having done a campaign in the Classics, then following that up with the Tour de France, then following that up with the Olympic Games, it is very, very difficult. And I'm sure that the UCI must have to think seriously about whether they should keep the World Championships so late into the season, because I'm actually wondering which riders are going to go forward to the World Championships, Phil, because there are so many of these bike riders tired after a very long campaign.
Yeah, it's imponderable now. They used to hold the World Championships in the summer, but now they tend to hold them out turning into the period of the falling leaves, and that's really not good. Although they should be highly successful in Pluy, because that's a hotbed of cycling in France. The crowd will turn up there for sure, and let's hope the weather's okay. It certainly isn't good in Tours. The rain still coming onto our windscreen, largely splashes off the wheels now because the sky isn't raining just now. As we go back to the lone leader, a man who has won Paris-Brussels in the past, the Tour of Lombardy, the Rochester Classic when it was a World Cup race, and indeed Paris-Roubaix. He's looking now to add Paris Tour.
Well, the counter-attack now about to catch the two guys who were with Andre Schmil, his last partners in that leading group of 3 riders, Nico Matin in the white jersey of Cofidis and Rick Verbrugge. I think now we will see a different style come into the tactics of the Mapei riders. They're going to sit at the back of the group there. A bit of a discussion from Goraz Stangelay, trying to find out just exactly what's happening. He maybe doesn't even know that Andrea Taffy is off the front of the bike race right now, but certainly the Mapei riders do know that, and I think they will take up the rear positions.
Well, there's the whole breakdown for you, the same names we've seen for a while now. Stangelay, by the way, speaks very good English as well. I think he's learned pretty much Italian too, because he lives there now. And he's in this group. A terrific season for him after a bad start. We were looking to reach here just after the rain stopped. Now the two Mapei boys are saying, well, what are we going to do? Our man's in front, and probably the reply is sit here and go with anything that happens, but don't drive.
Which is actually a pretty good situation for Mapei, because even if the two guys who are riding on the front right now are able to pull back Andrea Taffy, the win would then certainly go to Daniele Nardello. He's a great sprinter. He's got a fine finish. We've seen him take stage victories at the Tour de France. He's been so close to the Italian National Championships. And a quick word there from Andre Schmil to his teammate Rick Verbrugge. Get onto the front now and drive. Verbrugge was a passenger in that early breakaway of 3 riders, and he should have a little bit of energy left in those legs, but he has to dig very deep to try and pull back Andrea Taffy, whose advantage now is hovering around the 25-second mark.
Looks like Rolf Sorensen trying to draw them out there, and they're going to have to do something. But I think Schmil is compromised a little bit now, but really he's got to forget a high finish, but he's got to keep driving this breakaway so that Zabel scores quite a few points less than he does.
Zabel in this group just content to tick through with the rest of the riders. Rolf Sorensen trying to urge them forward. I think for these guys it's pretty much over. They're not going to make contact with the Andre Schmil group again as Jeb Guinness-Brook moves forward there. These 5 riders are caught almost in no man's land. They're really in a situation where they just have to survive and hope that the main field doesn't come back to them, although the main field now is 2.5 minutes behind the leaders on the road. Sorensen looking over his shoulder to see and just confirm what the gap is to the rest of the field behind it. This is a thing that a lot of bike riders do feel, even though they do get information from the blackboard at the side of the road and they get information from their team managers. There's nothing better than actually checking yourself, and looking back and seeing an empty road is a good boost for the morale.
It certainly is, unless you're behind the race, of course, then it's not so good. But looking here at the breakaway, and Schmil now has got 2 policemen sitting back there, and Nico Matan must be feeling pretty tired as well, so he's going to have to rely on Stangley, I think, to offer any assistance in this chase, and his teammate Verbrugge.
Nardello there just pushing forwards Goraz Stangley, saying, look, I'm sorry, my man's off the front, I can't work here at all, and he now has the responsibility on his shoulders of staying there and trying to recuperate as much as possible on the run into the finish, because if they do pick up Andrea Taffy, then the responsibility for the Mapei squad is going to be for him to try and win. Jouy-les-Tours, 16 kilometers to go to the finish, and still Andrea Taffy is holding on, and I'm beginning to think it's going to be pretty difficult for these guys, looking at the way they're riding right now, to pull back the Flying Italian.
10 miles to the finish, 10 miles to a wonderful victory for Andrea Taffy, and I don't think the combination behind is good enough to bring him back. And he's done this in Paris-Roubaix, of course. At this stage of the race he's still clambering over the last 2 sectors of cobbles, but now it's a smooth run into Paris-Roubaix, this wonderful long straight finish. We've seen the finish already this year in the Tour de France, where Mark Wouters was leading out his teammate Leon Van Bon. It was Wouters who won the race at the same finishing line when it was Paris Tours last year. He was in the breakaway on the Tour this year, and his teammate got the win. Wouters tailed off, if memory serves me right, to finish 8th.
The very long Avenue de Gramont. It's around about 3 kilometers in length, and it's a very long straight road, and a wide road at that. An ideal finish for a big bunch sprint, but that's not what we're going to witness today, because we've got this bike race split into several different groups all over the road of Paris Tours. And the man who was hoping to have been pretty close to the front of this race is Eric Zabel. Zabel is in the 3rd group on the road right now. This is the 2nd group.
Looks as though he's saying, come on guys, get through and give me a hand out here. Well, you look at the 2 Mapei boys, you know that there'll be no help coming there. In fact, only one's going through.
That was Paolo Bettini moving forward. Nardello's just going to sit right on the tail of this group, because he will have to take over responsibility of leadership if they do catch Andrea Taffy. But the important thing, I think, is the fact that those 2 Mapei riders are going to slow down the chase. Eric Zabel in the group behind is really trying to pull himself back. What a great performance by Eric Zabel. I thought it was all over, Phil, but it looks now as if the Zabel group here with Rolf Sorensen may well just reintegrate with the group of Andre Schmil.
Well, this is remarkable. Jan Kersipou is here. Taki is still here. Sprook, Sorensen and Zabel. That's a very good group, and there's still action there. They're going to have to watch it. The tactics of Mapei might well spoil this for Schmil yet, because Zabel doesn't have a lot of strength left, but he's a fighter by nature.
Great bike rider. one of those bike riders who will always be there, and I think his greatest pleasure this year was performing well in the Tour of Flanders and in Paris-Roubaix, because it's because of his performance in those two events really that he's now so high in the overall standings at the World Cup. They're 1 minute and 1 second behind Andrea Taffy right now, and there's only 15 seconds between the Andre Schmil group and the Zabel group, so Taffy is absolutely flying.
Well, that should be enough for Taffy, but I'm just wondering if Zabel will save the day here with a big last-minute effort. There's Taffy now, and as if to welcome him home into Tours. The sun has come out after a rather indifferent day since we set off at Saint-Arnoux on Yvelines, outskirts of Tours here now. These people will have seen Andrea Taffy on television coming towards them. 13.5 kilometers to go into town, just around 7.5 miles to race.
It's absolutely magnificent here. This is the style of the position of Andrea Taffy that we saw at Paris-Roubaix 2 years ago. And even though the sun has come out, he's not taking too many risks going around those corners there, because when you do come into town, these little white patches that they have on the roads in France are almost like racing on glass. They're very slippery indeed, and even though he's hovering around the 1 minute advantage right now, he doesn't want to take too many risks, or the possibility of finding himself on his backside on the ground here just outside of Tours, because that would really put a cat amongst the pigeons.
And it's happened before, as we well know. Flag is falling as they approach the finish. We don't wish that on Andrea Taffy. The sun just reflecting off the still drying road here, blinding our camera lens. As we go back here to the chase of the World Cup leader, still living in hope they can latch on. Here's the relationship. It was 15 seconds. It's probably no more than that now.
Pretty close, but it's so hard after 230 kilometers in the saddle to nail it back. It's 8 seconds the gap between these two groups, and I think finally the impetus has gone out of that group there. Taffy is 1 minute and 11 seconds in front of these riders, and I think finally in this group they haven't got the momentum to pull him back, and Andrea Taffy is now well on his way to victory.
I think that we've become a fight for second place right now, and more importantly for the World Cup itself, because Zabel has got his arch rival just 8 seconds in front of him, and it wouldn't surprise me if soon they feel that the Mappe boys, that is, that Taffy has got the winning margin, and they'll be free to start working because they're handicapped just now.
Nardello always sitting at the back, keeping an eye on affairs. He knows that he has to just sit there, and if anything does happen at the front of the bike race, he has to take over. Zabel is just hoping he can see those riders. Every time there's a long straightaway, he can see the group right in front of him, and he's just itching himself further forward. Attack there coming from Alessandro Patacchi. He rides for Faso Bortolo, and he's picked up the pace, and I think we may well see, Phil, a general regrouping here.
Well, you see, Zabel too is so anxious. When he saw the move coming, he tried to react immediately. He's third wheel just now. But I think, you know, we're getting into what I always call the Schmil zone. When you're in the last 8 kilometers or so, that's when Schmil attacks, and that's how he wins races. We've seen him do it many times, and now is the time, because he won't want Zabel to come back. Surely not after all of this work.
He's actually getting himself ready there. He's ripping off his arm warmers. It tends to get quite hot, despite the fact it's been a cold day over the last 10 or 15 kilometers. And if Schmil is going to make a move, it would be on the final little climb of the day. It's not really much of a climb if you go out for a bike ride in this area, but when you've been in the saddle for almost 6 hours, that is when it is a really nasty little jolt. And it's a good launch pad for somebody to try and get clear off the front of the group. At the moment, though, look at that. They're all in the same straight. It's less than 100 meters right now, but they cannot close it down.
This has been terrific riding by Zabel's little bunch. They've pulled themselves back into contention here, but they haven't got on.
Rider there from Mappe moving forward. That must be Nardello has gone off. In fact, there's somebody in front of him, and that is Andre Schmil.
Yep.
Schmil has made the move, and I didn't even notice that happening.
Schmiller's gone again, and Nardello has gone after him. Verbrugge, has he got the legs? I don't think he has. He's just making it look good. Martana's got Nardello's wheel. Stangli is the rider behind. Or is this Bettini? This is Bettini, yes. So it's Nardello up the road, and Bettini has decided he's not going to take up the others and endanger Nardello's attack, so he's backing off.
That's a pretty good move by Andre Schmil there. I didn't see it happen, but immediately Nardello, you see he'd been playing the police constable on the back there, just sitting, keeping an eye on affairs. His legs were just a little bit fresher. He responded immediately to the attack by Schmiel, but Schmiel will not get any help at all from the man from Mapei, and Stangelay now in the black liquid gas jersey coming forward, trying to pick up the pace, but it's too late at this stage of the game. You have to respond immediately when an attack like that happens.
So it's a little bit of a regrouping now. Anxious looks over the shoulder, and hello, here comes Jan Kersipur aboard. Rolf Sorensen, Erik Zabel, Alessandro Pataki and Zbigniew Spruk. And after all that work, Zabel's going to say, excuse me, but where is André Schmiel?
That's tough. He really has pulled himself inside out to get himself back up to that group there. There is André Schmiel. He's got with him Daniele Nardello, but they left it just a little bit too late. Unfortunately for Zabel, after such a long, hard, arduous chase, he's missed the boat.
Well, he had to come because Schmiel is such a predictable rider. He was bound to attack, and he's timed it to perfection. Now, can he hang on? Nardello here will do nothing. He can't do anything. Well, having said that, he looks like he's going to do something, but he's soft pedaling through, I think. He won't allow the gap to close on his leader, Taffy, but he wants to hold off the group behind. Well, he's not going to have a problem if this is the reaction from back.
Well, they've cut off completely there. Nobody wants to chase. Erik Zabel hasn't got any friends at all in this group, and probably there's not too many guys got very much left in their legs right at the moment. The only reason there's Sorensen trying to go off the front, the only reason Nardello, in fact, tried to go forward there was just to keep an advantage over this group.
Well, this time Bettini, paying all the attention, has picked up the wheel of Rolf, and the gap is there. There was no reaction from Verbrugge. I think he's tired now, rather pleased his team leader's gone, I would think. Chance to sit back now and let the race finish off by itself. As Sorensen here, a good worker, flicks his arm and finds nobody helps him. Back to the chase, the third chase group on the road now. And Zabel knows that the whole world is against him. Nico Matan going through. He must be tired, Nico. There's another attack from Pataki. And Zabel has not reacted again, and now Alessandro Pataki is gone. Zbigniew Spruk, I think it is, who's trying.
Tough day for Erik Zabel. He just made it up to the group of André Schmiel, and Schmiel had left maybe just 10 seconds in front. Schmiel now is well up the road with Daniele Nardello, and they're starting to eat into that advantage of Andrea Tafi, because a quick time check there indicated that they were inside 50 seconds, and a few moments ago, in fact, the lone leader at the front, Andrea Tafi, had an advantage of over 1 minute.
We've almost forgotten about Andrea Taffy now in the great fighting that's taking place. This has been a wonderful battle for the second place. Now that the leader, and I'm certain is the winner, has gone up the road. Here's the chasers at 10 kilometres from the finish. Nardello now beginning to work with Schmiel. He will know the time gap. He won't endanger that gap, but he wants to hold off the chase as well.
Pretty much relaxed there, Daniele Nardello. He's just giving Schmiel a slight help, but he doesn't want to eat into the advantage of the man at the front of the bike race, Andrea Taffy. Taffy's advantage currently 50 seconds over the two chasers, and this now is the group of Erik Zabel. Zabel, the leader of the World Cup. He started this day with a 130 points advantage over the second place rider, André Schmiel. And this is the little climb I was telling you about. It's a nasty little climb, and it really is hurting the legs now of Andrea Taffy. Once he's over there, he will plunge down into the outskirts of Tours, and it's not very far to the finish line from there. 10% is the steepest part of this climb, but its average is just 5, and it's only 700 meters in length.
So it's only a little blimp on the horizon for Taffy, but he'll still want to get it out of the way quickly, because these little climbs hurt now, because this is a very long race at 254 kilometres. Andrea Taffy riding with a point to prove, and a race he's never won before. If he gets it, it'll be his 4th classic win of proportions, but he's also won Paris-Brussels, although that race is not a World Cup counter. It's certainly a classic. Here is André Schmiel fighting his way back into the World Cup competition with Nardello glued to his wheel. Nardello, by the way, coming fresh off a win in the Circuit Franco-Belge. That's a race that runs on the French-Belgian border. It's a stage race. These days of modern categorization of the races, that was once an amateur race of some standing. It's now a lower down the ranking elite road race. And sorry about the breakup, but yet again, it's the usual problem with the microwave link. It's not a fault of your video.
Taffy's hammering down this lane now, Phil. He's taking all kinds of risks just to keep his advantage. And this is a pretty dangerous time of the day, because the fact is the sun is very low in the sky right now, casting long, low shadows. And it's a bit deceptive when you come into these dark corners, because you think the road may be dry, and then all of a sudden there's a wet patch on the road, and that's when somebody might slip down. You can see there's still a fair amount of water on the road, and that's because of the thunderstorms that we've had for most of this bike race today. But for the man at the front here, Andre Taffy, he's trying to pick his pace up as much as possible, and he will now know that behind Andre Schmiel is starting to eat into his advantage.
They are. His lead actually is coming down. About 45 seconds is all it is now, because here goes Schmiel. Lying off by a couple of lengths is Nardello. Road's a bit dry where they are, but they've still got to go down that last lane. The board on the left, I couldn't see it, but it will have told these two, although I doubt they saw it either, exactly what the gap is.
I would think if this two-man chase group does start to get a little bit closer to Andrea Taffy, then we'll see Nardello absolutely sitting on the back. For the moment, he's quite prepared to share a turn every now and again with Andre Schmiel to try and give the Mapei team as many points as possible in the team standings at this World Cup. There is the man who leads the event, and he really is having a tough day today. Erik Zabel. He's been racing since the month of January in Australia. He's been from Australia to Milan-San Remo, Tour of Flanders, the Tour de France, the Olympic Games, and still he's out there battling on the roads of France.
I think actually he's thrown the towel in, Paul, because he's off the back of that group now with Nico Martin. I think they've decided enough is enough, and he's fallen away from that group he was with. Martin is still racing well. They're saying that the chasers here, but I'm not sure whether they're the chasers or they've been dropped by the group.
This is the difficult part of the course. This is that final little climb. And there, in fact, they're pulling out the neutral service vehicle unless the Mapei team car now is behind Andrea Taffy. That means that the gap has come down to around about the 30-second mark. They're in this very narrow lane here as we head down towards the outskirts of Tours, as we rejoin the lone leader right now, Andrea Taffy. It's very difficult to tell from Taffy's style whether he's suffering or whether he's absolutely powerful. You can see on his face, though, that he really is concentrated on the effort in hand right now. But he is, I think, starting to suffer, Phil, as he's been in front of this bike race now for 15 kilometres.
Well, we've been talking about this man as being the winner ever since he went clear. Now, I'm not so sure whether he will stay away. If the crowd have anything to do with it, he will stay away. This is a really nice guy in Andrea Taffy. Oh, the gap is still reasonable, 56 seconds. That should be enough, I think. If that's accurate, that should be enough.
Once he gets to the end of this lane, he will drop off this small plateau into the outskirts of the city of Tours, and then it's basically a fat 3 or 4 kilometre run up the finishing straight. If he gets into the finishing straight with 20 seconds advantage, that's all he's going to need, because the crowd will certainly cheer this man on. 3.9 kilometres to the finish line. With 56 seconds, he doesn't have too much to worry about, Phil. The only thing that could really be a major problem for him is if he has a mechanical incident.
Well, the only thing is, Paul, we just passed the signboard saying 5 kilometres to go and the screen telling us 3.8. Well, Taffy won't have seen our television, of course, so he'll go with the 5. But he's still got to get down to the Avenue de Grammont, and then that's a lot. He needs at least 30 seconds on the Avenue, otherwise the guys behind will see him. And he's going up what is the last climb now, the Côte de Petit. And this again, the same as the other one, average gradient of 5%. A little bit steeper though, but again shorter, 600 metres.
These little climbs just put in to try and break up the main field. Because in the past we've seen a main field coming into Tours, but there certainly isn't one today. One lone leader, chased by 2 riders, chased by 2 further riders, and then everybody else is in 1s and 2s all over the place. The main field, or what's left of this bike race, is at the moment more than 3 minutes behind.
There's the 5 kilometres to go sign now. There's still a healthy gap here because Taffy is almost over the top of that climb. Our picture's not behaving themselves for a minute or two. They'll steady out. Now here is Zabel and Martin. I think they're behind the chase, but the indication from the television directors are that they're chasing in front. Anyway, Zabel is now leaving Nico Martin on this little climb, but I believe the other riders, Verbrugge, Stangeli, Bettini, Spruck, etc., are in front of Erik Zabel.
I would have to say, looking at the style of Erik Zabel there, I would say as well that he's been left behind by the rest of that group. Where's number 21, the leader of the World Cup, just riding now to keep himself, if possible, in the top 10 and at least walk away with a few points from this bike race right now.
His one concern would be if Andre Schmiel were to win this race and pick up 100 points. It wouldn't give Schmiel the lead, but it would make victory ever so possible in the Tour of Lombardy. And what a way to finish the season, to snatch your World Cup back, having won it last year in the very last race of the year.
Well, getting closer to the finish now, you can see that in fact Daniele Nardello is not working with Andre Schmil anymore now. The fact that he knows they have a good buffer over the rest of the bike riders behind them, he now knows that he has to play the tactical game, the team game, and directive will have come down to say, right, that's it. You're assured of finishing in the top 3 right now, but the most important thing for the team is to get the victory. Stay on Schmil's wheel, let him do all of the work at the front. With just 4 kilometers to go, Daniele Nardello now must be thinking about the sprint for second place and hoping to make it a 1-2 for Mapei.
There's Nico Matan, he's dropped back now, being picked up by Jan Kirsipuu as they make the left turn onto the last climb. And those legs are hurting, including Jan Kirsipoo's third for the past 2 years. He doesn't like these hills this time around, though.
Well, this has certainly been a very tough bike race today, made more difficult by the weather. Although the weather is quite magnificent now this afternoon, it really has been a very wet and windy Paris Tours. That's the rest of the group there with Rolf Sorensen, and a lot further down is Erik Zabel. So Zabel is behind the group here of Stangerle, Spruck and Verbruggen there, Sorensen, Pataki. So poor old Erik Zabel's had a pretty tough day. In fact, what a bike ride. He's come back.
He's ridden himself away from Matan, and he will not give up, and he's almost back on with the group that dropped him somewhere. We didn't see where. This guy refuses. He's thinking every place means more points, and they might be crucial after Lombardy now. Now we're on the long straight, and this normally is a bunch of 100-plus riders doing 45, 50 kilometers an hour. But yet again, for another year, Paris Tours has not gone to the sprint finishes. Just like Mark Wouters last year, Jackie Giron, we're now looking here at Andrea Tafi. He knows exactly where he is now, and he knows at the end of this road awaits a great victory.
Certainly, I think one person he'd like to have on the end of the phone right now would be the Italian national team selector, because this man was said not to have any form at all just a couple of weeks ago, but that's difficult to see when you're working for the team. Right now he's got an advantage of still around about the 50-second mark over the 2 chasers, and Andre Schmil is riding himself right up in the rankings of the World Cup. But nobody's going to take it away from this guy, Phil, and this, I think, will be a very popular win.
Yes, it will. I think Senor Fusi, the selector, should turn his TV set off now in Italy, presuming he's not at the finish here in Tours. But in fairness and with hindsight, it's all so easy, isn't it? But this man hasn't won a race this year, but he's about to now. Cleaning his sunglasses, making sure they're not coming. That's it. Victory for me.
I think we know who that message was for as well, Signor Fusi. I'm here at the front of the bike race, and that actually was not much of a smile from Andrea Tafi. We normally see him a happy man, but today, Phil, he is riding on anger.
I think he is. I think he came here to win. He reckons he hasn't won races this year because of his commitment to helping Mapei. But now the chase behind, there it is. I know it appears close. It's not that close, but even so, that has been a brilliant chase back by Schmil, and Nardello has just sat there watching it. And if Nardello had worked, which of course he could not, then they might well have picked up Tafi.
Tafi, what a great bike rider. He's going to enjoy this, but this is such a long finishing straight here at the Avenue de Grammont. He's now only just going under the banner, showing him that there's 1,000 meters left to go. This has been a very long bike race, in excess of 250 kilometers in the saddle, and for Andrea Tafi, he's really going to enjoy this last few hundred meters.
Well, he's got to survive 800 meters, but they won't get on terms now. Nardello's worked that one out because it looks like he's on the front of the chasing too, just keeping the tempo in the distance there. You can see the next group, and that should contain the likes of Bettini, so he'll control that one. They are in the far ripple on the road, but keep your eye on the man at the front now, because Andrea Tafi is going to give Mapei another World Cup victory. More importantly, he gets this one for himself. But how is he going to feel? Because he's not packing his bags tonight and heading out to the west of France to Plouay. He's not selected for the World Championships, and that's a shame.
It certainly is, because whether or not he would be a contender for the overall victory, he would have been an important man to have in the team. There is the victory salute for Andrea Tafi. Very similar to Paris-Roubaix, but not the same circumstances.
Well, on this sort of form, remember that Tafi once finished 6th in the World Championships back in 1996. He now gets his 4th World Cup win of his career. And so Gloria and his 2 children, Tommaso and Greta, will be enjoying this spectacle now. Look at this, taking his shoe covers off, kisses to everybody, and he's going to make the most of this. as he comes to the line in Tours after 254.5 kilometres with a lot of space. And now Schmill is going to get second. I think Nardello's playing the game here. He's not going to take him on because Schmill has done the attack. And that's a bit of a gentleman's ride from Daniel Nardello. He's allowing Andre Schmill to finish second. There's the clock on the right, although he's still got time if he wants to come round him. Now, is he going to wait?
I don't think he's going to move there. He's sat on the back wheel of Schmill for the last 10 kilometres. He's a very respectful bike rider, Nardello. He's just staying there in the slipstream, and you know he has not challenged at all. Second place is going to go very easily to Andre Schmill. 39 seconds in arrears, Phil, but that's important. That's a lot of points.
It is a lot of points, and Bettini is making sure that Zabel doesn't get fourth either, because he's come away from that little group as the sprint stars behind with Gorash Stangeli coming over the top of Rick Verbruggen. So it'll be fifth Stangeli, sixth Verbruggen, seventh will be Spruck, and still no sign of Eric Zabel. Tour of Lombardy is going to be some race now because Sorensen is away too. Here comes Rolf Sorensen, he'll get the 8th position. Zabel is in that group behind, and he's got a formidable sprinter in Jan Kersipu, as he's about to find out, I think, and also in Pataki. They're both taking on Zabel, and they're both going to beat him. As we look here at Andrea Taffy getting the victory, Zabel crosses the line in 11th place. He loses a massive amount of points to Andre Schmill, and this race for the World Cup now goes down to the line in the Tour of Lombardy. And World Cycling Productions, by the way, will be bringing you that on video as well. Two-handed salute for Andre Schmill. There is the result, as we just called it, split up. It's no longer a race for the sprinters, this is it. It is a very good, aggressive bike race coming at the end of the season, where it always has done for the best part of a century. Two Mapei men on the podium, splitting them, Andre Schmill, the World Cup holder. Oh, now for the Tour of Lombardy. Hope you've enjoyed it. For WCP and Paul, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye for now. Well, I hope you enjoyed yet another cycling video from World Cycling Productions as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Now, what many of you probably don't know is that I'm also the international editor of Cycle Sport, a fully international magazine which brings you all of the up-to-date news in the cycling world. It brings you profiles and reports of the top bike races and also stories of the men that make the news. And it keeps you up to date too with the technical innovations in our sport. I think we produced the magazine using some of the world's best writers. I know we certainly have one of the world's best photographers in Graham Watson. If you love cycling, you should see this book, and here's how you go about getting a subscription. Subscribe to Cycle Sport and we'll send you a free WCP video. Just call the number listed or visit our website cyclesportmag.com for a complete listing of the free videos available and for other special offers too. Don't miss this chance. I'm sure you'll love the magazine, and I look forward to visiting you each month through my column. Colnago is one of the perennial favourites of riders on the pro peloton. Why? Because Colnago bikes win races. Over history, Colnago bikes have been ridden to victory in the Giro d'Italia, in the Tour of Flanders, and a record-breaking 5 times in Paris-Roubaix. In fact, they've won the last 5 out of 6 editions of this great event. Now that's one amazing bike. World Cycling Productions is the exclusive catalogue distributor of Colnago frames in America. To see more about these magnificent frames, simply call the numbers on the screen for a World Cycling Productions catalogue or visit our website at www.worldcycling.com. WCP is one of the largest Colnago dealers in North America, with selection and pricing to ensure that you can own one of these magnificent bikes.